Hi, my name is Lauren, and welcome to the Inspiring Growth podcast. On today's session recording, I am going to go into the four stages of competence and how that relates to healing. So first of all, before we begin, I just want to welcome you here and just a reminder that I truly believe that wherever we are led to, there is something in that for us. So if you have found this recording, this episode, I am sure there is something in this for you today. I always say that we take exactly what we need um, based on the awareness that we're at, and we're really going to touch into that today, which I'm so excited about. Um, all right. So the four stages of competence was actually developed. I just kind of want to go back to the start because this isn't something that I've developed or created, and I always am intentional to give what's that called? Um, ownership to the person who thought at first. So this was developed by a man named Noel Birch back in the 1970s, and it's kind of around the four stages of learning in terms of the workplace. And I think I learned this with Bob Proctor when I was doing all my personal development work back in 2021. Um, and it just kind of really took away a lot of shame for me around that when you learn something like I'll go through it, but when you learn something new, there's a huge gap, and you can't get from where you are to where you want to go without going through the mush. What a great segue. So I'm just going to read a little article called In the Mush. So it says, approaching change, we cannot really know who we will be when we come out the other side. We can envision, plan, and set goals, and these exercises will make a difference in how the process turns out. But we can never know exactly. When we come through a profound change, we will have difficulty remembering how we could have ever done anything else. In the midst of profound change, we cannot see with certainty how it will turn out. We are in the mush. Every change creates a need for learning. This change-induced learning has four phases. Number one is unconscious incompetence. Number two is conscious incompetence. Number three is conscious competence. And number four is unconscious competence. So we're gonna go into those in a bit more detail, and I just want to recognize and acknowledge that that's a lot of words, and they're all very similar. And if you're feeling a little bit confused or overwhelmed, it's totally fine, and you don't really need to remember the words or the names. I always say to the girls in the Soul Collective that our subconscious mind is always listening, so there's no need to try and recall it through your conscious memory. It's being absorbed into your system anyway. So let's kind of talk about the first stage, which is unconscious incompetence. Now, this is known as the ignorance stage. So just as it sounds, we are unconscious, so we're not aware, and we're incompetent. So we're not aware of what we're incompetent about. So, so basically, we do not understand or know how to do something, and we might not necessarily recognize that there's a deficit with us. So, in terms of emotional healing, or shadow work. This might be that you don't even know that emotional healing is a thing or how it would be beneficial to you or your life. So basically, you're blissfully ignorant of the concept of emotional healing or shadow work or whatever the thing is. And this is kind of the initial stage that everyone's at. They're unaware of what they're unaware of, and they're unaware of their skill deficits, if that kind of makes sense. So then we move on to the stage of conscious incompetence. So we become aware of what we're incompetent at. So this is kind of where we recognize that there's a deficit in our life. So this stage is called the stage of awareness. So we're becoming aware of what we don't know. This can be quite a frustrating stage because we can see how that's impacting our lives. Say, for example, it might be relationally. We are aware that we actually don't know how to connect with another in an authentic way. So we're aware of that gap, but we don't know how to bridge the gap between where we are and where we want to be. So it's a really frustrating stage, but it's so necessary in order for our growth and in order to move on to the next stage. So we become aware of where we want to be with a particular area of our physical or mental health, but we're not quite sure how to get there. We might see others who are doing the emotional healing work. And we kind of think it's like something that others can do, but we don't know where to start or how to get started with it all. So then we move into the conscious competence stage. So as it indicates, so it's conscious, we're aware, and we're competent. This stage is the hardest stage because being conscious takes a lot of our energy. It takes a lot of our mental energy. This is the learning stage. So this is kind of where we're learning about how to do the thing and then we're practicing it. So this stage, we spend the most amount of time um, in this stage, in the conscious competent, in practicing the skills. So we can perform the skill, but it requires that deliberate mental effort. So we actively have to think about in each step in order to execute it. So it is incredibly tiring. And this is kind of where you find that a lot of people give up because it's exhausting and it feels like there's no end in sight. And if you have programs and fears around failure, they might get triggered as well. So you feel like you can't do it, and yeah, depending on your history and your past, you might give up, or yeah. So this is a great stage for exploration and kind of figuring out what works for you as you practice these new things. So a lot of people will try to follow the path that they're given. And the exact steps that that have worked for other people, because again, we don't know how to do it, so we're following what works for other people. And in doing that, it depends on, yeah, we can figure out that what works for other people doesn't necessarily work for us, or we can continue to try and do things the way that other people have told us to do it and continue to feel like a failure because it's not working. So both of those are kind of normal. So just to validate, um, it's a really, really hard stage on the journey, and it can feel really like clunky and awkward because you just don't know what to do. This part of the journey is of competence, of learning, of integration, is something that I would suggest having a mentor or having a coach or being a part of a community that is learning the same skill because you then have other people to keep you accountable for it. And you can talk about different experiences and what other people are going through to help you understand that what you're experiencing is totally normal. Like there's nothing wrong with your experience, it's just part of the process. And yeah, if you want to get to where you're going, so if you want to learn this thing that and how it's going to the value that it's going to show in your life once you've learned it, then you've got to go through that. You've got to go through the mush. So, Noel Bush kind of really reinforces that in order for someone to commit and have that determination, you've kind of got to realize your own incompetence and the value of having that new skill or behavior or whatever it is that you're learning in your life. And that's kind of what gets you through that really difficult stage. Now, because this is something that we talk about in the Soul Collective, and I basically say to the girls, I'm like, it's just habit formation. You've just got to keep going, keep trying. Um, you're gonna mess it up all the time, and you just bring yourself back to love, bring yourself back to love, try again, try again, try again. And then, like I think a lot of personal development communities say that, it's like 21 times, 21 days to form a habit. So if you do the same thing every day for 21 days, you form a habit. It's different for everyone. So for some people, it might be, 21 practices, and then it's integrated into your mind body system. But for others, it might be a year. Basically, I tell the girls, you got to commit to doing it for a year. And then, yeah, and then it starts, and then it becomes an automated way of being. So I'll talk about the last step, the last phase, the last stage now, and that's called unconscious competence. So that means that we're competent and we don't have to think about it. So we've practiced this new skill so much that it happens like second nature. We don't have to consciously think about it. It's effortless, fluent, and we can even do it while doing other things. So this stage is he calls mastery, but I call integration because that's what it means to integrate something into your whole system is that you no longer have to think about it or practice it or do it. You've learnt all of the different aspects in practicing it, and now it's second nature for you. So, in terms of emotional healing, you would kind of recognize in the moment that something is amiss, and then you would identify and put in place what needs to happen. So, for example, you're out at a social event and you feel like this anxiety. So, instead of becoming all consumed in the anxiety and unable to function, you might acknowledge that, recognize it, take some deep breaths, and just let it know that you'll process that later and kind of park that to the side so that you can be present at this event. So then later you'll go and you'll process that anxiety, you'll understand it, you'll clear anything that's there, and then you'll kind of look at what was it that happened, and are there any boundaries or anything that I need to put in place? And then you'll make a new way of being moving forward. And that new way of being, well, you'll go back through the process. So unconscious incompetence. So you're now aware of that. So you're now at conscious incompetence. So then you'll begin to practice and you just go back through that process. So one thing that I just really reinforce, and again, it just really removes the shame from not knowing, right? Because and I always say we don't know what we don't know until we know. And then even in realizing that comes with so much grief in it because there's so many things that we did and so many things that we were a part of, or so many things, so many ways that we've unintentionally hurt the people around us or impacted other people or caused certain things in our relationships that we just didn't know about. And just to give yourself grace with that, because it's totally understandable. And, it sucks and it's okay that you didn't know. So just bringing a sense of compassion to yourself for that. And now that you do know, you can then move towards creating change and going through this process so that you can learn a new way of doing it. What I've found is that a lot of people they get stuck at the learning stage, and they actually get stuck with information consuming, and they don't they there's like a knowing doing gap. So they know all about it, but they actually haven't started practicing or changing in their life. So it's not integrated, and there's still a lot of things that they're not aware of that they're doing. Um, and the impact that that's having on the people around them. So it's not until we really find value in learning that new skill, in learning that new habit, in learning that new modality, in learning that new way of being, where we can then find the drive to persist through that learning, practicing stage. And if you are someone who find yourself at that stage on your journey, keep going. It's going to be really difficult. You're going to have to keep refocusing on why you're doing it. And, all I can tell you is if you just don't stop, you'll wake up one day and it'll be integrated and you'll be like, what's going on? Like, I don't even have to think about this anymore. Like, I remember for me, when that first happened for me, I was like, who am I? Like, who am I? It was really cool. Anyway, so thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I would love to know what you have taken from this. Pop it in the comments, or send me a DM. If there's anything that you're confused about or wanting clarification around, also you can pop it in the comments or send me a DM. But again, you're exactly where you need to be on your journey. Continue to connect with your intuition and follow those nudges for what's next for you, and you can't go wrong. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.